Next is Matthew Asner. I met Matthew Asner actually over the internet. He emailed me and he was very concerned about the cuts in special education. We talked about that and how wrong it is that we should sacrifice children with special needs at a time when we need to be providing services more than ever. I also am very pleased to know Matthew's father, Ed Asner, who's been a wonderful actor, a community leader, leader in the anti-war movement, and has been with me on this campaign. Matthew Asner is a producer in his own right, with credits including creating and producing the groundbreaking Showtime miniseries Hiroshima. Mod 3 Productions, his company with partner Danny Gold, has produced many shows for networks such as the History Channel, MTV, and ABC Family, to name a few. Matthew has a 7-year-old autistic son named Will and a brother with Asperger's. He has dedicated himself to working with charitable organizations such as Autism Speaks, fighting to raise awareness about the school budget cutbacks that are creating a crisis in special education. He has been a guest on KPFK and 1150 AM Talk Radio and writes editorials for Huffington Post. Welcome, Matthew. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon. I just want to make sure that I point out that my brother has Asperger's, not his brother, because I brought my oldest son, Jake, with me, who has probably one of the hardest jobs in the world, which is being the brother of someone who has autism. And I just want to acknowledge that, Jake. You do a great job. What you said is so important. It's just so important, and it has everything to do with what I have to say today. Because if we don't take care of our kids, and if we don't make sure they're taken care of, then they're all going to end up in homes or in jail. And about a month ago, I was approached by my son Will's teacher and his assistant principal, who told me that they were shutting his class down next year. This horrified me, and I said, well, what can I do? She told me that she would have the assistant principal call me and discuss it with me. She did, and I learned some things that really shocked me. Basically, they're starting to gradually close down special ed classes throughout LEOSD, and it's time we did something about it. I told the assistant principal I would do everything I could to see what I could do. I called Cheryl Crone, who is the head of District 1. I live in Tarzana, that's my district, and had a long discussion with her that completely blew my mind. She basically opened up to me and told me, what was happening. Basically, she told me she'd been mandated to close 27 classrooms in District 1 alone. Now, in District 1 and District 2, there are about 230 classes. So 27 classrooms in District 1. District 2 was mandated to close 22 classrooms. They were then called and told to close several more, so the total now is 64 classrooms. 64 classrooms out of about 230. So it's roughly a quarter of the special education classrooms are being closed next year. Now, this is when the population of special ed students is only growing. So it means larger classrooms and less teachers. Because I was also told, when I asked about my son's aide, she said, well, there are no aides. And I said, no, my son has an aide. She goes, no, you're misunderstanding me. There are no aides. So this horrified me, and I thought, what can I do? So I wrote a letter to every parent who has a student in LEUSD, and it's a call to action. And it's important for everyone who has a child, not only in special education, but in general education as well, to let Ramon Cortinez, Sharon Howell, who is the head of special education, know exactly that you're not going to sit down and take arbitrary cuts to special education. Because what it will do in the long run is it will harm the fabric of our country. We'll have more special ed students going into jails, into homes when they're older. I met with a gentleman who ran a halfway house, which was kind of the last place you go before you go off into the prison system. And I asked him, I was just curious, and I asked him, you know, how many of those children had special needs? And he said 90% of them. And I said, really? And I said, well, how many of them had early intervention, had, you know, services at an early age? And if they didn't have services at an early age, what would the number be if they had? And he said, probably 80% of them would not be here today. They would be, you know, either adjusted into life, or they would be, you know, living, you know, law-abiding lives. So there's a big problem here. And it's incumbent upon all of us to stand up as a group of parents and do something about it. There's a public hearing on the April 29th at the Beaudry building in Los Angeles at LAUSD, and it's the independent monitor. I know you've had some experience with that. So I really want to see as many parents go down and make their objections known.
Thank you very much, Matthew, and for that call to action.